Hi, I'm Ray Crothers, the transcript artist. Today I'll be addressing one of the main questions that I get. What's the difference between transcription and stenography? What's the difference between scoping and proofreading? Are they all essentially the same job? Are they separate jobs? So this is going to be a very bird's eye view of these four tasks in the transcript world. It's not meant in any way to be comprehensive. If there's any interest in my delving a little bit more into any of these topics, just drop me a comment below, and perhaps in the future I can pull out some real jobs and show you really how it's done. So we'll start off with transcription, which at its core, it's translating speech into a readable text that retains the speaker's meaning. And transcription is done from an audio recording and typed using just a standard keyboard, usually QWERTY layout, but Dvorak, whatever. You start off in English and you're writing in English, and you're working from an audio file, so whatever audio you get is what you have to work with. And unfortunately, often audio quality isn't great, as my example will show you. This is pretty extreme, but I got a very garbled file, and you just get a lot of inaudibles. Sometimes if you're really lucky, it'll be really clear, but that was usually the exception. So because you're listening to English, you're writing English, you're just using a standard keyboard, your transcript is going to be immediately understandable by the layperson. And you have to be working, you can't be doing this in real time because the average person speaks over 200 words a minute, but even a really good typist usually can't type more than 120 words a minute. And I am a very fast typist. I usually hit 130 words per minute without errors, and I could never transcribe at more than probably 70 to 80 words per minute because you're interrupting to wind the audio back or to listen to something over and over again. So audio speed is not, typing speed is actually not super important in transcription. Accuracy is probably a little bit more important in your ability to understand what you're listening to and be able to punctuate as you're going along. So that's the transcription from the audio recording. Now the stenographer is in the actual proceeding live, writing in real time as the person is speaking. And they're writing phonetically using a shorthand, and this is a real life example. So they're on a little machine. You've seen them in the TVs and TV shows, on movies, little machine. It's only got a few keys on it, and they've got this little piece of paper coming out, although nowadays you don't have the paper. It's all done digitally. And the stenographer, being in the proceeding, is able to interrupt, to ask for clarifications, to deal with audio issues or crosstalk, or there's a problem with the exhibits, anything that's unclear. That's the big advantage compared to having working from a recording, as you saw my previous example with all the inaudibles. So that's why there's a lot of concern right now with people saying, well, the stenographer is on the way out the door. There's no place for the stenographer in the modern world. I think anybody who's actually transcribed from a garbled recording will understand that there's no way that the legal proceedings, legal world can actually do without a stenographer. They try to cut corners, thinking, oh, we're going to cut our budget, but it usually backfires. So this raw audio is then, nowadays, it's machine translated using something called CAT software. In the old days, it was translated by an actual person. So I've noticed that you've got some court reporters that are getting a little bit lazy because they say, oh, I'll just rely on my audio to fill in the transcript at the end of the day, and then they're kind of like daydreaming as they're writing, or they're being very sloppy, and then their notes are not very good. And I think in that case, you might as well have just had a transcriptionist working after the fact. But most of the reporters that I work with a very high caliber. Their notes, they're better than an audio recording. They were right there. They didn't miss a beat. And I've had cases where, for whatever reason, the audio dropped out, and we're working strictly from the notes. And I've done a little bit of work learning how to read these notes, and I've had to manually translate some of these notes myself. And let me tell you, I was sweating bullets. It's not obvious. And the reporters sometimes have their own shorthand within the shorthand. So it's quite a task. So I think the software is absolutely fantastic. So From the writer, it goes into the software, into the computer, and that machine translation is about as good as, again, the court reporter's writing, and also their ability to harness all of the tools from the CAT software. So they're building dictionaries, they're building templates. You've got some court reporters that they hit translate, and the resulting transcript is almost immediately ready for proofreading. And there's others where you might as well just retranscribe from scratch because everything is wrong. Like the formatting is wrong. It's just their writing wasn't consistent. Their dictionaries aren't built up, so it doesn't translate. So it really, really runs the gamut. And so when Scopus gets the file, that's analogous to editing in the publication space. But again, you're working with a translation. It's not, people don't speak the way that they write. So you do need to know the grammar rules and the punctuation, but you're going to have to break them to make things more legible. I always cite this example that when I was transcribing once, I had a 13-page run-on sentence that I had to make. I had to break it up and make the point very, very clear because he started at page 1 and then the point is made at page 13. Well, how does the person at page 13 kind of remember what the person was saying on the first page? And with the punctuation, you can kind of clean it up and maybe break it up into units and like sentences that maybe aren't a complete sentence in the publication world, but it works as a transcript. So that's where the art of it comes in. That's why I consider myself a transcript artist, is being able to harness the grammar to really shape your translation of somebody's speech. So when you get your transcript, you're going to turn it into a solid rough draft by resolving conflicts and translates from the machine translation process. Nowadays, most scoping is done to full audio, so you're listening to the audio as you're reading it, and then you're going to catch any drops. You're going to transcribe any drops. Depending on the reporter, some reporters will tell me, I know I had a big drop, mark it for me, and I'll come back and I'll write it with the machine, and it'll be really fast for her. Other reporters will just say, just charge me transcription for those extra pages. I don't really have a lot of reporters like that anymore. I have a much higher caliber of clients, but when I was beginning, I could have a job where I might charge, half the job scoping and the other half of the job was transcription. Then your punctuating and formatting is necessary, and you're researching spellings, you're researching styles. Like let's say somebody decide a case, you might be putting in parentheticals for exhibits. There's a lot to do with the scoping. It's very engaging. You can really use your software to make yourself more efficient, build macros. So it requires a lot of programming skills. I really enjoy it. It really, I'm just doing so many different things that I'm always engaged and always busy. And the final step is the proofreading. And that's basically just like in the editing world, where it's the final eyes looking for the very final egregious errors that the spell check will have missed. You're not really supposed to be using a spell check at this point. The spell check is the Scopus domain. The proofreader is supposed to catch the things that the spell check isn't going to catch. So I don't understand proofreaders who are like, well, how do I proofread a PDF? Well, you're not, how do I spell check a PDF? Well, you wouldn't be able to spell check a piece of paper. And I've been working in proofreading space for about 30 years now. I started off on paper. We didn't have spell check. Dating myself a little bit there, but that's the fact. So you should have a very broad general knowledge. You should be a reader so that you know how language is used out in the world to help you build your vocabulary and be able to catch homophones and like little nuances in spelling that might be wrong. I've got a good one here with affect and effect, and this is you're the final eyes in the transcript space. A lot of the times now the proofreading is done on a PDF, and then the reporter goes back in and they'll manually input the corrections, and then it'll be sent off. I have some proofreading clients, they want me to work in the case software with track changes on, almost like with Word. And in that case, I do run the spell check because I might have stroked something wrong and not caught myself, and then I'll catch it with the spell check. So it really, in general, but if you're working on an iPad, it's just like old school. And I personally find that proofreading works better on an iPad with a stylus. It's different brain engaging than when you're actually sitting at a computer. I catch things proofreading that I might miss scoping, and vice versa. With scoping, I'm a lot more focused on formatting, making sure I have all my bylines, my Q's and A's. If I have one reporter who does not take advantage of her CAT software, and she manually formats everything. So when I'm proofreading, I'm trying to catch her formatting errors, and then I might miss egregious errors that I would miss otherwise. So I think it's really important to try to keep the jobs very separate, the scoping and the proofreading, so that you can do your best at each one rather than try to combine them. So that, again, as I said, is a very brief overview of the difference between the four jobs. And again, if there's any interest, I will just drop me a note and I'll see about doing a video. I thought it'd be interesting to show you how I annotate a PDF for proofreading, how I work in the CAT software. Of course, I don't do the stenography, so I can't give you an example of that, but I can show you a little bit about transcription and some of the tricks that I've learned over the years. I don't transcribe anymore. I'm very much retired, but a lot of this stuff is still very relevant and very salient to the scoping part of my business. So thank you for watching.